Hello, this will be a short little video on how to use the Vassal game engine with the module for Starfleet Battles Cadet game to learn how to play Starfleet Battles. You can get the Vassal game engine at vassalengine.org. Just go to the module section for the modules after you download the actual game. The engine can be downloaded right here on the primary page. And once you go to the module, you'll want to go to the S section for Starfleet Battles. And it'll be here under Starfleet Battles Cadet Game. And that'll take you here to this engine and this write-up. And right here is the module. So you just right-click, save link as, and you've got the module. Now, Amarillo Design Bureau has been loath to give permission for an official Vassal engine for the actual Starfleet Battles game, but they have given permission for the Cadet game. They do have a Federation and Empire Vassal module, but they want that hosted directly on the ADB StarfleetGames.com website. Now, the Cadet game was something that was created to teach people how to play SFB, so it's a marketing hook to grab people and pull them into the game. And these files are available for free on the ADB website. So they've actually got, well, before I get into that, there is a Cadet Training Manual, and then it was republished as the Cadet Training Handbook. It's the same thing, just a later version. And they've rewritten it so that it's a rule book. In other words, these have Scenario 1, learn some rules, play a quick little game. Scenario 2, learn a few more rules, play a game, etc. So this is progression learning, whereas this rulebook is actually the rulebook. It's the same information as in these two booklets up here, but it's presented in a slightly different form. They still have the scenarios, but the scenarios are at the end of the rulebook. So it's all the same thing, it's just how you want to have it. They're downloadable files, so you can get all three of them, print them all out, and choose to keep whichever one you want. But there's more links here. That's the original Cadet Handbook, some SSDs, some counters, and a printable map. And here's a web page for the Cadet Training directly. And it's got links to other SSDs, etc. There's two other websites down here, which are also dedicated to cadet ships. And here's a quick screenshot of the Vassal module. Basically, it's a hex grid with your counters and your Starship datasheet, the SSD. It's also got other charts in there, like your phaser tables, your photon tables, etc. But anyway, let's get into the actual Vassal. So once you've downloaded and installed Vassal, you can launch it. It'll come up here. You may have to import the module, but it'll probably be there, or just select Open Module and select the SFB cadet.vmod. And then once it's in the list, you can just double click it or go File, Open, and it will load. Now I'm running this on a dual monitor setup, so this is probably going to open in the middle of the dual monitor. So let me just drag it over here. Now you can start a game offline if you just want to check out the module, or you can look for a game online. it's opened up across two monitors. Let me drag this over. There we go. And that's what you get, is you just get a hex grid. And at this point, you're probably lost. Okay, well, you're going to need game pieces to play. So there's a button up here for game pieces. And it's got all the races in here: Federation, Klingon, Romulan, Gorn, Orion, Wynn, some civilian freighters, Tholian, Zinti, Hydran, ISC, Seltorian, Lyran. There are other races to SFB, but these are all that are included in the cadet module so far. So let's grab Federation. And then in that drop-down list, there is a cartoon counter for the Federation ship. And you can get a turn marker, and a side slip marker. And there are other things here, like a Federation drone, a Federation fighter, Federation plasma, Federation shuttle, Federation T-bomb. These really aren't all needed for the cadet game, but these are just counters, so I threw them in because eventually, if you learn how to play Starfleet Battles and buy the rule books, if you want to use the cadet module here to play the real game after you've bought the SSDs and things, you can do that using this as a map. So those things are here. And then you would load up your opponent. So let's grab a Romulan. That's the Firehawk. Now there's a little bar here you can drag over. So you've got Firehawk, the Eagle, and the Warbird. And if you want to use the KR cruiser, just grab the Klingon. And there's even a nuclear space mine here for the Romulan. But anyway, let's go back to the cruisers. Let's grab the Firehawk. Now, the map doesn't zoom in and out, but there is a sector map here, which will give you the big screen overview. So you can just toggle that on and off. So one ship would start at the bottom. So you've got to drag it down to where you want to start. Now with cadet ships, you really don't have to be that far apart, but it is a map that is quite large. So you get row 1 over to 42, and it's 32 hexes high. So I'll just put that there, scroll up a bit, and let's just rotate this piece. So there's shortcuts here. So there we got two ships. They're not quite on the same map here, but if you look at your sector map, you can see the two counters. Now the reason I used counters that filled the entire hex instead of the small little square with a smaller image on the square is that you can see it much better on the sector map. You can even make it the S for the side slip and T for the turn. And you got your blue little Federation shape, etc. So those are counters, but what else do you do? Well, there's charts. And these are your weapons. So you've got your weapon sheet. So your Type 1 phasers, Type 3 phasers, and Type 2 phasers, ADDs, web fist, photon torpedoes, disruptors. Now you notice that these are only for standards, because in the cadet game there are no overloads, so they're just standards. If you want to get into using overloads, well, you'll have to graduate to the full Starfleet Battles game. There's plasma torpedoes, fusion beams, hellbores, PPD, particle cannon. So all your weapons charts are there. There's some information here on the Orion. There's your plasma information for your arcs, your arming sequences for your plasmas, and there's your plasma table for damage. And you'll notice the plasma is missing from the weapons table because it's for direct fire weapons. So plasma's got its own sheet with its own table down here. And then you got a firing arc sheet, which teaches you the firing arcs. And I've put in a drone sheet. Now I've created these drones. I've labeled them Cadet 1, Cadet 2, Cadet 3, Cadet 4, Cadet 5, Cadet 6. In the normal Starfleet Battles game, they're like Type 1, Type 4, etc. In normal Starfleet Battles, they're Speed 8, Speed 12, Speed 20, Speed 32 drones. And the standard warhead explosion strength is 12. In the cadet module for the explosion strength is reduced to 6, and then when you start using the full scale ships they go back up to 12. But I just, for some variety, I created some other drone types in here. So you got your standard C1, which is 4 points to kill the drone, and it will do 6 points if it hits your ship, and it travels on the board at speed 8. C2 drones, 4 to kill, does 9 damage if it hits you, speed 6, so it's a little bit more damage, a little less speed. And this is played on a 16 impulse chart for the cadet game, but there's also an 8 impulse chart for the first couple scenarios, so I wanted to keep the speeds within that 8 impulse chart kind of thing. And then for replaying the scenarios with a 16 impulse chart, we've got C3 drones, which are 4 to kill, they do 6 damage, and they're speed 10. The normal SFP game uses a 32 impulse chart, and the cadet uses 16. So standard drone speeds in Starfleet Battles with 32 is speed 20. So I just cut it in half at speed 10, and the damage is cut in half. But the damage to kill the drone is still the same. C4 drones, 6 to kill, 6 damage, speed 16. So that's the equivalent of a fast drone, but it's slightly armored. C5 drones, 4 to kill, 8 damage, speed 8. So it's a little bit slower, does a little bit more damage than a standard drone, but it's the same to kill. C6 drone, 2 points to kill, carries a one-shot phaser 3 or a one-shot ADD, and it's speed 10. And then I put in an experimental scatter pack rule. And then you get a movement chart. There's your 16 impulse chart you'll be using most of the time. For a couple scenarios, there's an 8 impulse chart. There's also a cadet sequence of play here. There is a 32 impulse chart when you want to start trying out the full scale ships. The full scale ships are not included in this module, but you can go to the ADB website and actually pull down the tournament ships, or if you go to the ADB website and download the cadet manual, there are full scale ship SSDs in that. And there's a turn mode chart here and an order of precedence. There is the cadet damage allocation chart, and there is the full game damage allocation chart. Now this is not automated, so you'll have to roll your dice, look it up, and then apply it to your sheet. And you have to do that manually. And then there's the transporter actions, hit and run raids, getting past guards, etc. It's all here as a quick little chart. There's an electronic warfare chart, small target modifier chart, a cadet cloaking chart, and there's some quick little charts here for the full cloak. You'll need to get the basic and advanced set for Starfleet Battles to find out the rules to how to use these charts, but they're here as a quick reference. There's some terrain here. This is the full terrain of Starfleet Battles. There is an experimental terrain rule on the ADB website in the cadet section, but you can just bypass that experimental rule and just go to the full terrain rules if you want. There's a non-violent combat chart here if you're playing Federation. There's a repair, commander's options, repair cost, etc. And there's a collateral damage from a Wild Weasel chart. So you got all the charts you need If you need to roll dice, you've got a single d6, 2d6, 10d6. I'll skip these buttons here and I'll go straight to the SSDs. Now these are your Starship datasheets. So you got your sheet. Here's your Gorn, Fed, Klingon, Romulan, Romulan KR, Romulan Firehawk, Orion, Winox, Windfish, a civilian freighter, Archaeotholian, Neotholian, Zinti, Hydron, ISC, Celtorian, Lyran, and LDR. Now, this is not like Starfleet Battles Online, where all your damage is automatic and it's linked to your graphic SSD. I haven't gotten into doing any of that programming yet, and I may or may not be allowed to go to certain links because of the permission ADB is granted to make this module. They may not want us to have that level of integration. But for now, you've got the picture. So if you need to, you can take a screenshot or go to the ADB website and get the cadet SSDs there and just print them out. But you can just take a screenshot. Take the screenshot, copy it to your clipboard or save it, load it up into a paint program, and then you can mark your damage in your paint program, or you can print it out and mark it directly on the sheet, kind of thing. But it's here for a reference so that you can see what your ship has and what your opponent's ship has. But for damage, you'll have to track that yourselves on a piece of paper. And then we've got some other stuff here. The sector map I've already shown you. This little button over here marks all the pieces on the map as having not moved. So you can kind of play this by email if you wanted to. You can do a turn, save it, mail it to an opponent and back again, or you can both go online at the same time and play. And you've got a chat window up here where you can talk back and forth, kind of thing. And there's a ship's log, which will have some information here where you can type it in and then reveal it later. Notes that only you can see, notes that are public at all times, and if you're creating scenarios and things like that, you can create a note here, save it, save the game, and it's there as a scenario, kind of thing. Now the range counter here is kind of functioning and kind of broken. So if I do range 1, range 2, range 3, it's fine. But when I go to range 4, it's wrong. It's correct if I go down, but it's wrong if I go horizontal. So this is range 5 in both spots, but it's just off by 1. And you notice here it went from range 9 to range 10. But I go here, it's range 10. But over here it's 9. So the range is kind of broken. I'll have to try and find out how and why later and fix it eventually. But there's no energy allocation forms. How are you going to do your EA? Okay, well, you click on your piece. You can mark them as fired or moved. That's mostly for the play-by-mail kind of thing. You can maneuver your ship. You can label your ship. But right here's what you're interested in, show data. But we'll also take a look what else is here. So you can destroy your counter, remove it. You can conceal it, delete it, and make it invisible, kind of thing. It's there, but it's kind of not there. But anyway, what we want to look at is show data. And this opens up a spreadsheet. Okay, so it does give you a scroll bar. So what you can do is you can type in warp, impulse, APR, total used, etc. And then you can fill in the numbers. So 20 power. And since this is a Romulan, well, let's take a look at the SSD for the Romulan. So we have an F-type and an F-type. So we can go FA or FA, FB, and these are nothing to hold. Or if we were arming them, we could do the 1 and then next turn 1 and then next turn 3 kind of thing, etc. So you can fill in your EA form here. When you close it and retrieve it, it should come back up and it's all there. Now this doesn't do the math for you, but it will let you write it in. It's a bit of a kludge, but it's there. And well, how do you do your impulses? Your impulse procedure. Well, let's drag that back down a little bit. Didn't mean to go that far up. Well, you get a button here for turn. That opens up this little window. So if we click the little plus, so the first thing that's going to happen is if you're using terrain like a nebula on certain impulses, it will cause movement, etc. So that's the first thing on the sequence of play. You click the little plus symbol, it's movement, and then you move your ships if they're set to be moving on those impulses. And you would know that by looking at your chart and looking at your movement chart. So on impulse 1, almost nothing moves, but if your ship is speed 16, it's going to move every impulse. If it's speed 12, it's going to move on the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, but not the 5th. So you have to keep your movement chart visible kind of thing and do your movement. After movement comes the cloak stage, your tractor stage, your launch stage, ESGs, etc. Now you notice there's stages here that Fed versus Romulan aren't going to use. So you can configure it. Just right click on it. Configure the subphases. And if you know you're not going to use dogfights, you can uncheck it. If you know you're not going to use web solidifies, you can remove it. If you're not a Celtorian, you can remove it. If you're not an ESG, you can remove it, etc., etc. So if you're not using terrain effects, you can remove it. So you can select what you're going to do and then save. So that way it's only going to pull up the sequences that you need or want. Train's being a little bit unresponsive there. It keeps coming up. Oh well. But the other, like the shield cracker steps and the ESG steps, aren't there. And that's how you would do that. Now, there is a minor kludge right now so far, and that is there's no way to do simultaneous actions very well. But there is, in the generic pieces, an action, no action counter. So each player can grab one, put it up. I haven't figured out how to mask this until you wish to reveal it, but basically both of you can select action or no action on any particular stage. So if you're down to fire stage and you want to determine whether or not you're going to fire, you can do this, and then once you do it, you can reset it back, kind of thing. Now, what you could also do is you could go into your ship's log and do a delayed thing here. And you could do like impulse 5 SOP or something like that, and type it all up, kind of thing. So fire phasers, and then they reveal that. Now it doesn't reveal it here in the chat, but it's now a public kind of thing, so your opponent should be able to see it. I haven't been able to test that, but it is showing a check marked as revealed, so you should be able to write in your simultaneous actions here if you want, and then reveal them. Backed up by this kind of thing. Hopefully I'll be able to make these masked so that you could keep them hidden, but make your selection and it's masked and it doesn't show it as action, and then add something for a text field so you can type in what your action is, so you don't have to resort to this. And maybe I can later change this so that it echoes this information into the chat window. That's stuff for the future. Right now this is a beta release kind of thing for testing. It will let you kind of kludge your way through a game across the internet kind of thing, or if you've got a huge monitor at home that you can use it instead of a tabletop kind of thing, you could do that. But it's a first step. And let's just double check everything here. Did I show you everything? Well, there's terrain pieces here. Asteroids, a moon, planet. There's explosions. Asteroids. And under asteroids, if you drag this over, there's different kinds of asteroids. And under starships, let's just take a look at Lyran or Orion. There we go, Orion. Now the Orion can have ESGs as an optional weapon kind of thing. And I have put in the ESG radiuses here. And you can turn your ESG kind of invisible, so you can still see it, but if another counter is underneath it, you can still see it, kind of thing. Now you really don't need the ESG on the map as you're flying around, kind of thing, but at certain points in the game it might be useful to you to do that. As you notice, its movement is Control F for forward. So you notice that you can get your ESG to move with your ship. And that's pretty much all I have to show you. There is a webs link and info thing here. This comes up. It's got all the information here. This is still available on the Vassal page. in this section here, it's the same information. So in the comments there, just looking for a window. So that's in there. And then there's the version window, which is blank right now. And then there's an info about the module. So it's an introduction to Starfleet Battles, the cadet game. And you can actually set the turn in here. So here, turn 5 kind of thing. Impulsate, stage, save, that changes it. So there is some functionality here. Just be aware that when you're adding pieces, sometimes there's a bar you got to drag over to actually see a list. For instance, here with the win, there's two types of win. There's a win ox and a win fish ship. And then you've got optional weapons like ESGs and things like that. And then there's a fighter, etc. So it's all here. You just gotta be aware you're gonna have multiple drop downs on certain races, and on others you're just gonna have everything right here all at once. So depending on the race, for instance, Tholian, there's a Neo-Tholian and there's the Archaeo-Tholian, and because of that they have different types of webs. So you've got the Archaeo-Tholian web and the Neo-Tholian web. So just be aware of those little drag them over kind of thing, those dividers. And you got slip markers and turn markers for the Archaeo and for the Neo. And then shuttles. And then fighters. So sometimes there's a drop down, sometimes there's not, so you'll just have to pay attention and look. So it's all here. Anyway, that's enough for this video. If you have any comments or questions, just comment below, like the video, share it, and hopefully you'll have fun playing Starfleet Battles Cadets online through Vassal. Have a good day.